Hello and welcome. You're watching France 24 and this is Eye on Africa, our top stories. The 1994 Rwandan genocide is once again facing justice. This time, a former Rwandan doctor is on trial in Paris for allegedly helped destroy evidence of some of the killings. Kenyan lawmakers have started the process of removing the country's deputy president from office. They accuse Rigathi Gachagua, among other charges, of corruption, allegations he has dismissed. And it's Maracana season. The name is from Brazil, but a football-like game was born in Ivory Coast. It has its own World Cup happening right now, and the Elephants of Côte d'Ivoire are the big favorites. A Rwandan former doctor who practiced in France until 2010 went on trial in Paris this Tuesday. Eugene Ramasillo is accused of taking part in the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis, including helping to destroy evidence of the killings by burying victims' bodies. Ramasillo has maintained his innocence. In Rwanda, survivors are eagerly awaiting the trial. Report Clément Diroma.
On this hill in Gisagara, tens of thousands of Rwandans were killed by Hutu militias during the genocide against the Tutsis.
Here was a mass grave, and here too, another one.
Evode Kalima works for the French Civil Party group, accusing Eugène Rwamuccio, a former doctor who worked in France, of taking part in a genocide. Over 550 Rwandans are expected to testify in a Paris court.
Locals accuse him of supervising the digging of mass graves and bringing in mechanical equipment to excavate them and bury the bodies here. He also handled collecting and burying bodies from Butare town.
In 2009, a Rwandan court sentenced Rwamuccio in absentia to life imprisonment. Now under judicial supervision in France, he has always claimed innocence. Survivors from Butare district are calling for a harsh sentence.
Many perpetrators are still free, and it deeply saddens us survivors. It's painful to see Rwamuccio walking free right now. He mocked us on social media, saying justice would never come for him.
According to survivors' associations, around 100 Rwandans linked to the genocide are still living in France. Ibuka, the largest group, welcomes this new trial.
Rwamuccio's case highlights the challenges genocide victims faced with the French justice system, but also the progress being made today. We hope this momentum continues and speeds up.
About 40 cases involving suspects living in France are still under investigation. So far, only 7 people have been convicted by Paris.
Kenya's deputy president is facing an intense political battle as MPs have moved forward with impeachment proceedings against him. Accused of corruption, ethnic division and undermining government authority, Rigathi Gachagua's position has become increasingly fragile, with growing tensions between him and President William Ruto and 291 MPs backing the motion. The political future of Kenya's second-in-command is on shaky ground. Olivia Bizot.
Kenya's Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is facing an escalating crisis. The impeachment proceedings against him moved forwards on Tuesday. It was formally tabled in Parliament, and the motion is gaining momentum. 291 MPs are behind it. That's a lot more than the 117 required. Gachagua is being accused of corruption, of ethnic tension and division, and of undermining government authority. Now, the situation stems from a deep fallout between Gachagua and the President William Ruto, who chose him as a running mate because of his strong support in the vote-rich Mount Kenya region. But tensions between the two men have been escalating in recent months, especially after Gachagua was linked to the anti-government protests in June, during which at least 50 people were killed. Ruto has remained silent throughout this process, but speculation is growing that he supports the motion. So what happens next? Well, now that the motion has been formally tabled in Parliament, it will head to the National Assembly for a debate and vote. And if 2/3 of MPs there approve the motion, it will head to the Senate for another debate and vote. And if both houses approve the motion, then Gachagua will be removed from office. Now, the Deputy President has insisted that he has voter support, but his position is looking increasingly fragile, and many say that his fate is already sealed.
Moving west, calling for an end to hunger and misery. People in Nigeria rallied in the streets of Abuja and Lagos as the country marked its 64th independence anniversary. President Bola Tinubu told protesters their voices were heard, but pleaded for patience. After coming to power last year, Tinubu brought in austerity reforms billed as a way to revive the economy. But today, Nigeria is currently facing the worst economic crisis in a generation. Laurent Bersecher has a story.
Calling for an end to economic hardship and insecurity on a symbolic day, small crowds of protesters took to the streets of Lagos and Abuja as Nigeria celebrated its 64 years of independence.
They are celebrating. We are not celebrating that. But rather, the masses of this country, they are only celebrating poverty, hunger.
Nigeria cannot claim to be an independent nation when the people are not independent of hunger, the people are not free from insecurity.
Since coming to power last year, President Bola Tinubu enacted a series of austerity measures meant to relaunch the country's struggling economy. But Nigerians have instead seen commodity prices soar and inflation reach a 3-year high, while crucial subsidies were scrapped. In an address to the nation on Tuesday, Tinubu defended his policies and pleaded for more time for the reforms to bear fruit.
I am deeply aware of the struggles many of you face. I plead for your patience as the reforms we are implementing show positive signs, and we are beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yet in the streets of Lagos, patience was fast running out.
What was the point if from the speech he gave? It is all recycling of same thing, same dimension of promising what you cannot do.
Tuesday's protests saw a reduced turnout compared to similar rallies in August, when over a dozen people were killed in a brutal security crackdown.
An unmarked decision. The High Court in Pretoria has ruled in favor of an NGO's constitutional challenge against South Africa's Sexual Offence Act. The Embrace project has successfully changed the burden of proof for cases relating to sexual violence. So what does it mean? People accused of rape must now prove that victims provided consent. In other words, believed consent can no longer be used as a defense. Tom Kennedy with more from Cape Town.
South African feminists have been waiting for more than 2 years for this landmark decision. The NGO, the Embrace Project, launched this constitutional challenge demanding that people accused of sexual violence prove that consent was given. Here's Leanne Germanos.
A rape survivor reached out to us on our social media platforms. She told us about her experience with sort of the failure in the criminal justice system. She explained to us that she'd been raped, and she was one of the few fortunate rape survivors whose case actually went to trial. In her trial, the magistrate found that she had not given consent, and that she had been sexually penetrated unlawfully, but that she couldn't convict her perpetrator because the state had failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he had intended to rape her.
Now, the High Court in Pretoria has agreed with the Embrace Project that it should be on people accused of sexual violence to prove that consent was provided. This means, according to the Embrace Project, that judges can now focus on the objective facts of a case rather than trying to prove what the accused was thinking. It also means that people accused of sexual violence can't rely on this defence that there was no resistance. Now, in South Africa, the conviction rate for rape is only about 5%, but with this reduction in legal hurdles, that's expected to rise.
Now, its name comes from the iconic stadium in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, but it was in Côte d'Ivoire that this derivative of football was invented. Maracana now has its own World Cup. It's being held right now in Abidjan until October 7th, and the Elephants of Côte d'Ivoire are the big favorites. Julia Guggenheim reports.
In the midst of the Maracana World Cup, the Ivory Coast national team trains at the University of Abidjan. The sport was invented here by Ivorian students in the 1970s. And since then, the Elephants have been crowned African champions 8 times.
It's not for fun. We played in the African Cup, but this is another dimension. There's motivation all over Ivory Coast. We've always won. We've never lost.
Maracana is the sport of choice in working-class neighbourhoods. It's played 6 against 6 on a handball pitch without a goalkeeper, and so it requires little infrastructure.
I've played regular football several times professionally for 90 minutes. There are a lot of differences. Maracana is a very tactical and technical game, and there's not too much commitment.
For the president of the International Federation, the World Cup is just the first step towards international recognition for the sport, which he would like to see become an Olympic discipline.
We're waiting for the politicians to take this issue in hand to give a boost to Maracana, which today represents a reflection of Africa's honor, participation, contribution, and African excellence, a sporting exceptionality, and a cultural exceptionality. We need to ensure that this project is supported unanimously by the African Union.
The 16 entering nations, including France, Brazil, and Jamaica, will be competing until the 7th of October at the Palais des Sports in Treichville.
Thank you for watching this edition of Eye on Africa. Stay tuned on France 24 for more news.